Last year I mentioned that I'm going to start teaching myself how to paint the human figure. Well, recently I painted this little boy, and today I want to share a few different things with you. When painting the figure, I know I'm going to have to deal with painting clothes, which is something I've not done before in watercolour. What occupied me the most with this painting was the jacket. So that's the title of my painting, the jacket. I had to try to capture the look of the denim, both the blue denim on the jacket and the black denim on the jeans. I painted in the black denim on the jeans first, but I got the colour wrong with my first wash. So I want to show you how I corrected that, and then I'm going to show you how I painted the jacket. This is painted on Arches cold pressed watercolour paper, 640 GSM in weight, and I used Winsor & Newton watercolour paints. This is the reference photo that I used to paint the painting. This was taken by Nathan Dumleo. I downloaded it from Unsplash website. This is how my painting looked after I painted in the initial washes. You can see I've painted in the denim jeans, which are supposed to be black. I mixed some black from French ultramarine and burnt sienna, but I must have put too much French ultramarine in it, and they turned out really blue. So I'll show you how I fix that now. I made the dark mix with lots of pigment and no water, and then I took some of that mixture and placed it in another well, and I added some water to it. I thought I'd use this mixture here with the water in it to paint the first wash on the jeans. I checked the colour on some scrap paper before I used it, and it looked okay. I went ahead and started to paint that colour on. And then I waited for it to dry, and this is what it looked like. So it was a lot bluer than what I was expecting it to be. I'm going to mix some burnt sienna into that mix and paint that over the top of it. I'll re-wet the jeans, but this time I'll keep the water on the jeans. I won't take it out onto the background. When I washed in that first layer of paint, I not only wet the jeans, but I wet the area beside the jeans, and that's allowed the paint to bleed off into the background that you can see. In this mixture of paint, I've put some more burnt sienna into it, and I'm hoping it will be better this time. Okay, so fingers crossed this will turn out better when it's dry. I don't want to put it on too dark just yet because I will come back and darken it in places. French ultramarine is a granulating colour, and you can see how it's created some beautiful texture on those jeans. So I've taken that all the way down to the bottom, but I've kept it a bit darker up the top near the jacket. So as I've worked my way down the leg there, you can see it's a bit lighter. I've mixed a tiny bit more water into it. The area up the top here is still wet. I want to darken that now, so I need some more pigment. I'll use this thicker pigment here, and I'll paint that on up in this area where I want it to be darker, closer to the jacket. So the paper's wet. The paint that I put on there first hasn't dried, it's still wet. If it had started to dry, I'd have to dry it off and re-wet it with water to paint this on. I'll see if I can paint these creases in here that go across the leg. You can still see some French ultramarine showing through that wash that I've just done, and I quite like that. I think that looks really nice through the black. So I don't want to do a lot of work on the jeans because I want the focus to be on the jacket. There's another crease over here on this leg too. Okay, I'm going to leave that alone and have a look at it when it's dry. As I mentioned, I think that the initial blue coloured wash worked in my favour because you can see the blue coming through in places, and I quite like that. Now I want to show you different parts of the denim jacket, but before I do that, I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative people. They have classes on lots of different topics, including painting, drawing, illustration, and photography, just to name a few. As you might know, I've been working with Skillshare for a few years now. I'm currently working on my 12th class, which should be published early this year. Because I'm teaching myself how to paint the human figure, I want to learn how to take more natural photos of people so that I can use them as reference for my paintings. I don't particularly like posed photos. I'm after a more natural, unposed look. So I've been getting some great tips from photographer Benjamin Heath. He's got a class on Skillshare where he teaches you not only about the technical side of photography, but also about how to engage your subject to create more natural looking poses, and how to frame and compose your photo for maximum effect. I can apply a lot of his tips when I take photos, and I can also apply his tips to my paintings when I compose them, which is really useful. His class is called Portraits and Places, Photographing People in Their Spaces. So there's plenty of classes on Skillshare that you can enjoy. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no annoying ads, and they're always launching new premium classes. It's affordable too. It's less than $10 US a month for an annual subscription. If you've not used Skillshare before and you'd like to explore the site, I've included a link in the description of this video. The first 1,000 people to use the link will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. Okay, back to the jacket now. As I said, most of my time on this painting was spent on the denim jacket. So I'm going to show you some different sections of that now. I washed the jacket in with a layer of Antwerp blue, and then when it was dry, I started adding all the shadows and folds and creases over the top. I'll start with the collar. It's got an underwash of Antwerp blue on it. Now I'm wetting it with water. Okay, so that's wet all over now with water, just the collar. I've just mixed a grey from French ultramarine and burnt sienna. I'll paint this on in the shadow areas that I see on the collar. So I'm working broad to specific again. I look at the major shapes first, and that's what I paint on. Fill in the entire right hand section because that's in shadow there. Then I come over to this other side. I can see a shadow on the left hand side of the collar as well. And I put the paint roughly where I see the shadow. I've left the collar for now. I've painted in part of the sleeve on the right hand side. Now I'm painting in the shoulder section. I did the same thing. I wet it, then I put the grey mixture on, and here I'm using Prussian blue. I'm painting some darker shadows on with this, and I'll start to establish those seams that run across the jacket. The colours I used on the jacket were Antwerp blue, my grey mixture, Prussian blue, and Payne's grey. This colour here is Antwerp blue. This is Antwerp blue here too. I painted the centre panel in the back of the jacket the same way. Now I've moved on to the side of the jacket. The area here is quite dark, so I've got some Prussian blue. I will need to come back and darken all these shadows later, but I want to do that gradually. I'll sneak up on the darks. Okay, so all of that was Prussian blue. I've painted quite a bit more in. Now I'm coming back to this area to deepen the shadows. So at the moment I'm painting some water onto that area. I've got some Payne's grey here. I paint that onto the wet paper. I start where I see it's darkest, which is right down in the corner. And then I can take the paint out of my brush and move the paint around that's on there. So I'll take the paint out of my brush now. Nothing on my brush, it's just damp. And I'll push the paint up that's there. And that will give me a darker section down the bottom. And then it gradually gets lighter as it works its way up. I don't like that little line that I just painted, so I'm just going to rub that off. That area has dried, so I'll continue down. This is water again. I'm taking the water over the area that I just painted so that I can join this area up with it. I'll take it all the way down to the bottom section. So that's all wet now. I'll get some Payne's grey. Fairly dark. I paint that on where I see it's darkest first. So that's right in here. Taking it down a bit further. Right down beside the rolled up part of the sleeve. It's fairly dark there as well. I'll run it along that bottom section. And over towards the hand. Now I'll take the paint out of my brush. I'll use a slightly damp brush now to tidy up that edge. That completely dried. Now I'm wetting it again, but this time I'm wetting the sleeve as well as that side section there. I've got Payne's grey again. I need to take that over the top of the sleeve as well. So I've taken it over the sleeve there. And I've darkened that shadow on the back of the jacket. The shadow on the sleeve blends into the shadow that's on the side of the jacket, and you can't see where the edge of the sleeve is in places. Now I've got some Antwerp blue. My paper's damp still. I just felt that that colour needed to be a bit brighter there. Now I've got some water on my brush. I want to put some paint along the top edge of the rolled up part. It's a bit darker there on the reference photo, so I need a bit more colour there. I've got some Payne's grey on my brush. So the paper where I'm working is wet. I haven't put any water on the rolled over part of the sleeve though. Just push that up a little bit. I think I probably need it a bit darker than that, so I'll get some more paint. Just smoothing away that edge first. I've got some more Payne's grey. I've wiped my brush over the pigment this time. It's fairly dark. Now I'm starting to paint in the seam that runs up the sleeve. I'm still using Payne's grey, the paper's damp. So it's not sopping wet, it's just slightly damp. And it's giving me those soft, fuzzy edges that I want. Now some water along this seam. I can paint the edge of that in now too. This is Payne's Grey again. And I think I'll paint a broken line along here. Down here on the bottom section of the jacket, I've wet it with water. I'm using Payne's Grey here again in the darkest areas. I'll paint around this little panel. I've drawn in some pencil lines for myself. So my paint is covering the pencil lines. And the water on the paper makes the paint bleed slightly and it gives me those soft edges that I'm looking for. Here I can paint around the buttons that will go there. This is the shadow that I can see around them. Later on, when I get closer towards finishing the painting, I paint those buttons in with some Van Dyke brown. Moving down onto the jeans now, I've just wet around the pocket that I drew for myself. Now I'm picking up some of that dark pigment that I mixed before from French ultramarine and burnt sienna, and I run that along my pencil line, the same way I painted those little panels up on the denim jacket where the buttons are. I only wanted to suggest the pockets. Didn't really want to put much more detail than that. That's a bit of water. Seems to be drying really quickly. And then I put the paint over my pencil line. Then I can take my damp brush and soften it further if it needs it. So basically for the denim, I worked wet on wet over the top of a pale base colour. The base colours of the jeans and the jacket were matched in tonal value to the lightest areas that I could see on the reference photo. I worked from broad to specific, so I looked for the broader or larger shapes in the shadows and I painted them on first. And then I gradually added some detail and some more darks. So I gradually deepened the colour in some of the shadows until I was eventually happy with it. What you saw here is just a snippet of my full-length tutorial. This weekend I'll be posting the full-length tutorial on my Patreon site. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes long, I think. And I take you all the way through the painting from start to finish. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of the fantastic content that I'm going to share with you this year. I'll see you soon. When painting the figure, I know that I'm going to have to deal with painting. When painting the figure, I know that I'm going to have to deal with. When painting the figure, I know I'm going to have to deal with painting clothes. Clothes. Painting clothes. Clothes. When painting the figure, I know I'm going to have to deal with painting clothes. Clothes. Painting clothes. I've got water on my lip. When painting the figure in what you saw here is just a snippet. It's just a snippet. And some more darks. So I gradually deepened the colour. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of the fantastic stuff. Content. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a like because when you do, more people will see it. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss me.